Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. My name is Anie Deslauriers, and I am the new General Director at the Association des Galeries d'Art Contemporain. And it's the association that is behind Plural. I wanted to start this conversation almost in a meta way, and I wanted to introduce everyone. So the first person here is Gareth, and if you could just talk a little bit about yourselves as I introduce everyone.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming out. My name is Gareth Brown-Jowett. I am the co-owner of Patel Brown Gallery based in Toronto and in Montreal. We are exhibiting here at the fair this year. I've been managing art galleries for almost 20 years now. I also was involved in founding an art book fair called Edition that ran in conjunction with Art Toronto for, I think, about 6 years. And I've participated in probably over 100 art fairs in the last 20 years. We, as a gallery, participate in art fairs almost on a monthly basis. I think last year we were in 13 different fairs across North America, and we typically try to do at least one fair outside of North America a year at this point in time as well.
And Mia Nielsen.
Hello, my name is Mia Nielsen. I am the director of Art Toronto, which is Canada's largest art fair. I'm a longtime curator and arts producer. I have had a hand in all kinds of different aspects of the art world, from galleries to large-scale installations, arts festivals, music festivals, alternative venues. Yeah.
And Anne Roger.
Hello. So my name is Anne Roger. I am based in Montreal. I am the collection manager of Giverny Capital Collection. So Giverny Capital is a private equity bank who owns like 800 works of art. So we are based in Montreal, and I am in charge of the works and the different locations where the works are displayed. Prior to that, I was also part of Gallery Antoine Tasquiran as the director of the exhibition program for many, many years. And I have a background also in Europe, where I use for other collectors in London. And I had a small, short experience in auction house called Art Curial in Paris. So various aspect and vision of the art fair world.
So welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for helping me out with this subject this afternoon. What I wanted to do was, as we discussed with Mia, was almost start in a meta way with describing what is an art fair. If you could go ahead.
Sure. So an art fair is a collection of gallery spaces brought together from various geographic regions. Sometimes they're organized around a particular theme, so could be, art on paper, for instance, could be historic work. And then there are programs whether they be educational or entertainment, that are programmed around the fair to really create a focal point and energy to bring large audiences out to the space to connect with the galleries and to purchase work. Art fairs are, over the last 20 years or so, have become a really important market driver for the international art market for here in Canada and of course around the world.
And yeah, sure, always feel free to add as we're going along with these answers, but you did pretty well, Mia.
Thanks.
Gold star
not my
for
first
today.
rodeo.
And as a gallery that participates, as you said, in 13 art fairs last year, I think that's a record, Gareth. I was wondering, how do you choose which art fairs you attend and how you integrate them in your business plan?
Yeah, it varies, right? Like, I think there's a number of factors that come into play for us when we're choosing to participate in fairs. We participate with, in a couple fairs within Canada on a regular basis. So like Plural and Art Toronto, we're participating there because also we have a collector base there. We have a lot of artists that are there. It's a little bit more accessible for us as well. We're able to, for transportation and logistics purposes, it's easier. We try to align ourselves and our program with fairs that really make sense for who we're exhibiting and the type of program that we put on. So, right now our focus as a gallery is to really try to have consistency within North America. So if you do art fairs as a gallery, you can't just go once and then not go again. It's a marketing tool. We look at it, I look at it as a way to sort of get our gallery brand out there, the artist's name out there, and reconnect. And if you don't, it's like putting an advertisement out in a magazine once and then never doing it again. You're not going to see results. You have to continuously sort of do it, put your name out there, and have elements of consistency, whether it's through the artist, whether it's through your gallery sort of logo, whether it's through the staff members that are participating, and really sort of drive a market, in those areas.
Is there like a magic number of participations, or does that?
It really depends on where you're going. So each sort of city has their own dynamics. Last week we were participating in a fair in Dallas, the Dallas Art Fair, which is much more like niche market. It's a little bit smaller, but there's a lot of really good foundations and institutions and people there that are really excited to support contemporary art. And once you sort of get within the the inner workings of the collector base there, they continuously support. And we've done it now 4 times, and every time we go, we find success there. Whereas with other fairs, it really depends. In New York, sometimes we'll do really well. Other times it'll be a bit slower. Depends on the other events that are happening that time of the year. If it's paired with another art fair, how long has the fair been running for? So those are some of the factors that we kind of really take into consideration. Recently, we participated in a fair in Paris, which is different for us, called Paris Photo, which has been around for a very long time. I think it's the largest photography-based art fair in the world, and it's been running for a very long time. Our program, though, is not just photography-based, and so it was a little bit out on the limb for us, and we were trying something different. The response was very positive, what we were doing, but from a financial standpoint, not as good as other fairs. If I'm being completely honest, it was, the audience was very different than what our sort of program typically would fall into. But we were able to sort of do a project space that was, a little bit more entry cost point. So you kind of take those things into consideration.
Okay, thank you. Anie, you have a very different relationship with art fairs because you have attended as an art dealer in the past, but now as someone who works and is the contact and key person with regards to a corporate collection, you have a whole new relationship to them, right?
Yes, it's true that it's very different of what I used to do when I used to work at the gallery, but in a way, it's very useful because I can use this experience and knowledge of how the market works to, make the right connection with gallerists, artists, and what to ask to the art dealers as well. So it's why when we want to attend an art fair, we will do a lot of homework before, emails asking for price list, what will be the special project, just to make sure that when we arrive on site, we will be ready and we will want to see and know what we want to see. But then, of course, we leave like a space for surprise and, experience. So.
You'll notice also when you'll be walking around the fair downstairs, you will notice that there's these beautiful stickers with some logos on them. One of them that you'll definitely want to look out for, the Giverny Capitale one.
Yes.
So it's almost like a Where's Waldo?
And I have to say that this is the first year that we decided to have this kind of agreement of acquisition.
Why was it important for you guys to have that?
It was very important to me personally because I knew that as an art dealer, when collectors or potential clients see those little stickers, they will feel secured of a potential acquisition. And yes, so that gives like some security, and I knew that it would be useful for the art dealers, reassuring for the new collectors. And anyway, every year that when we come to Plural, we always acquire any work. So I say, why don't we just set a deal?
You'll notice also that these labels are kind of everywhere. There's some for the National Gallery of Canada. There you'll see some for the Musée d'Art Contemporain as well, and some by Giverny and other corporate collections. But I also wanted to broach the subject today about, and this is a little bit more to Mia, how is there a before and after pandemic in terms of trends, or how the fair has been, or has the fair changed in a massive way? Do you see a difference between before and after 2020?
So, full disclosure, I started with Art Toronto in 2019, and before that, I was curating. So I don't from an inside perspective, I'm not sure that I have a real perspective on that pre-pandemic time. I did, of course, attend a lot of fairs, and for clients I was working with, I would go to a lot of fairs. I would say that something that I'm seeing in fairs is that they're becoming much more experiential. When I think of the fairs that when I think of Art Toronto, the fairs that I enjoy attending, there's of course the exhibition spaces are the most important, right? That is why we come, and as an audience, it's such a wonderful opportunity to get to see so much work from so many different galleries, to that all that exploration is so important. But I find that as fair organizers, the investment into restaurant spaces, bar spaces, lounge spaces, those opportunities to recharge, I think are really, really important. I would also say that when I think of my favorite fairs, and opportunities to connect with institutional collectors, with curators, understanding kind of what's going on in a broader art world, kind of exclusive of the market, is also something that I'm seeing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Gareth, as someone who has been doing this for a while, have you noticed any changes in what an art fair was before the pandemic or after?
Yes, I mean, there's definitely been some shifts, and major shifts early on in the pandemic. So Patel Brown Gallery, we launched perfect timing in 2020, beginning of 2020, right as the pandemic broke. And, art fairs weren't happening then. It just wasn't happening. You could barely keep your gallery doors open. But we were fortunate enough as a Canadian gallery, being in such close proximity to the United States, when the fair started to happen again, we took advantage of the fact that we knew that a lot of European galleries were unable to attend the fair. So we started to apply, and we were able to get into some fairs that typically can be more difficult to get into and establish relationships with. At the beginning, there was a lot fewer people coming through. The European presence was not there. It was mainly North American people coming through. You're starting to see more and more increase in attendance and people coming back to these fairs now, but there's been room made for younger galleries now. I think certain fairs started to realize the value of some of these new galleries injecting a certain amount of life into the fair again. And so I'm starting to see that kind of like cycle into the main section of the fair. It's not just kind of, there's multiple sections of fairs, and typically as a younger gallery you start in like a presentation section or a solo booth, and there is a subsidy included in that as far as the cost. But you're seeing those galleries go in, and then they're moving into maybe into the main fair after a couple years. So the attendance is starting to creep up. Interesting enough, Mia was mentioning about like the common spaces and the sort of public artworks. I found that those have decreased in fairs. There's less restaurants, there's less, decoration in the hallways. The parties at the beginning of the events or in openings are less extravagant. But people are starting to get more comfortable, and it's coming back. But there is a certain amount of hesitancy that I'm finding, that's been consistent with visitors. But I don't know. I feel like it's going to return to sort of what it was. Other than, I don't know, there's been a few fairs that we participated in over the last couple years. For example, Expo Chicago, where we have a booth there right now as well. And we do the Armory Fair in September. And last year, it was announced that Frieze was buying out both of these fairs. And so there's this interesting sort of trend where now there's these big companies that are buying up certain fairs. So how will that change the fairs overall? And, will Expo Chicago operate the same? Will Armory operate the same? There's some questions there that I have. I'm not 100% sure on.
Yeah, I think what I wanted to add is actually during the pandemic, collectors used to buy more online or through digital tools. And for the last years, I guess we still keep those habits. But from last year or maybe this year, I think we will return to this new normality of physical art fairs. In my case, we are planning more trips regarding and towards art fairs and design like trips around the schedule of art fairs. So even if for the last years we lost, these beautiful habits of traveling, it will come back, I'm sure.
And speaking of traveling, have you, in your job, or have you would you notice that you've attended more Canadian galleries, Canadian art fairs, or American ones, European ones? Do you have, or is it very diversified?
For me, I can't really say that I will travel only for my job or for my personal interest. Yes. Everything is mixed. So yes, I'm going to Frieze, New York, Basel, but it's not because we have some acquisition to make specially. It's not into my responsibility. But if that happens, that would be great. But for my personal interest, we organize trip, and it's very important to attend also to those art fairs and events like the Venice Biennale also, or just being curious. See, for example, what is this Zurich Art Fair or the Liste Art Fair? Go towards the frontiers and the borders of America as well. So,
okay.
Yeah, if I can build on that, I just think it is, I totally agree with you. I, for work and for pleasure, go to many fairs and art events in North America and internationally, and I think it's such an important opportunity to kind of take the pulse of where the art world is at in any given moment. And we saw that in, Mexico City with Zona, and then the other affairs that happened at the same time. We'll see that in Venice. We'll see that in New York. It's an extraordinary opportunity to just immerse yourself in the moment.
Yeah, and the content that you'll see at these fairs is going to change significantly depending on where you are, right? Like here at Plural, you're largely Canadian content, right? You're getting a lot of Montreal-based or Quebec-based galleries. You're getting Toronto, and when you go to Europe, though, you're getting a lot more European galleries that will participate from those areas. And when you're going to New York for Frieze, you're going to get European galleries, but you're not going to get the percentage. It's going to be a lot more North American-based galleries. So depending on where you go and where you travel, you're going to see different types of content, and it's important to do that to sort of get a diverse spectrum of what's out there.
And I was actually very curious to know how you adapt the content of your booth when you decide to go to Dallas Art Fair versus Plural or Art Toronto, because even though we're 6 hours away, I know that what you bring to Art Toronto will be different than what you bring to Plural.
For sure. I mean, for Plural and Art Toronto, definitely a different kind of thing. Because we have a space here and we have space in Toronto, our director in Montreal kind of makes a number of decisions around what she feels is going to work for the market here. In Toronto, we tend to show a fair amount of different things. And then when we're going internationally, it's more of a focus. We usually take 1 to 3 artists to fairs. We tend to do a number of, like curatorial booths, so we get invited by curators, and it's maybe a single artist. So right now in Expo Chicago, we have a solo presentation by an artist named Rajni Pereira, and next month during Freeze is another fair that happens called Not in New York, and we're doing again another single artist presentation there. So we sort of try to pick and choose based upon certain artists that have a certain trajectory and we might think may work in those markets. And then, like I was saying before with Perry Photo, we didn't know. we were testing it out, and we did a solo presentation there as well. And you learn from going and doing it and meeting people and getting a sense and a flavor for the fair. Sometimes you go and you actually do research in advance. You'll check out a fair once or twice beforehand, see kind of what other galleries are exhibiting, and it gives you a better sense of kind of what maybe will make sense to take as a gallery.
Yes, if I can jump on that, I think it's very important when art galleries, art dealers try to curate their booths also accordingly to the collector's taste.
It's a guessing game every time you go for the first time, right?
I know. And for example, if I can explain you what happened last year, I arrived at Plural and I saw the beautiful booth of Steven Berger, and he presented a beautiful and very important series of John Max photographs dated of the 60s, pictures of the stock auction space in Montreal. And obviously for us as a private equity bank, that resonates a lot, since also because we had John Max works in the collection. But, bringing those specific works to the Montreal market was very clever from the art dealer because he knew how to pick our curiosity. So for us, this is just, the perfect experience because we are surprised and it's the perfect match of what we are looking for.
So we are lucky enough to have quite a lot of institutions present also on the Thursday night at the VIP and all throughout the weekend. And as a dealer in your past and a dealer in your present, I was wondering with having such a concentration of all these collections, do you guys change? Is your booth completely different from the Thursday to the Sunday? Like, do you feel like you're going to rehang? Do you plan a lot of other works to bring?
I mean, we always bring extra work,
Yeah.
and here we're presenting, a number of artists, and we will cycle things out. But depending on if we have institutional interest or we're talking to a museum about an artist's work, we'll keep them up or we'll put them up until they can come through. If an institution makes an acquisition and they put on one of those stickers, you keep the work up.
I like the stickers.
Yeah, I mean it continues and it's a conversation starter. It does provide, as I was saying, like a certain amount of validation for other people when looking. Sometimes they'll delve deeper into the subject matter because when you go to art fairs, there's so much there, right? You're seeing so many things. It's really hard to stop and take in all of the works that you're seeing. And sometimes you actually have to really understand all of the pieces that you're actually you're seeing and what the kind of context is behind the work, which maybe doesn't come through immediately by just taking a quick glance. So, we absolutely do cycle things through, but we are in conversation with the curators that we know are coming to the fair to see if there's something that they want to see. We'll put it up. We'll make sure it's here for them. Like I came back on Friday morning early to put up a piece that the National Gallery wanted to look at. And I knew they were coming back at 11 o'clock. And they ended up acquiring the piece. And then we decided we were going to obviously keep it up for the fair because we got a sticker.
And now a little bit more of a loaded question. What does the future hold for art fairs? Mia, I'm lobbing this your way.
I love that I get the challenging questions. I think that, okay, so it is true that, during the pandemic, we did get very used to buying art online. I have found over the last year or so, audiences are very excited to come back, see art in person, to just explore it, whether they're acquiring or just wanting to experience art. I think that, I think particularly in Canada, that art fairs will continue to be an essential part of the art ecosystem. And, like I was saying earlier, I think that as fairs develop different entry points for the community to engage, whether they be collectors, curators, whether from institutions, from from corporations, I think we love art fairs. When you see the crowds here, people love. I know,
but we're not very objective.
No, but it's not just the booth and the artwork that we see in the booth that we love. It's just everything that is around that, the talks, the programming,
connections,
the connection. And I have to say that on Friday night, it was so busy and I met so many people. So I think I have a to-do list of emails to send that will keep me busy for the rest of the month, I think. So, no. Art fairs are just more than presenting works in a booth. It's
effervescent.
Connection.
It's community.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's also a really good, art fairs can be entry points. They're not the best way to view art in a great context, right? Most artists would rather their work be viewed in the context of an exhibition where you can spend time and you can understand their work in greater depth as well. But what I would say for people who are, if you're going to art fairs, you're looking to learn about, different galleries, go and look and see which spaces speak to you, and then spend the time to do research afterwards about those galleries, follow their program, go to the actual gallery spaces as well. I think art fairs are great resources for finding out a lot of information. Who are some new artists that are out there? What are some interesting galleries and what is their programming like? And then taking that and sort of building a structure for yourself to go and actually visit those spaces. Because some of the best program that you're going to see is going to happen in the physical gallery spaces. That's where, the artists are putting most of their attention, they're putting their time into those exhibitions. Obviously, they're creating great new pieces for fairs as well. But, to circle sort of back to the original question, the future of art fairs, I think they're not going anywhere as far as I can tell. They're a huge part of most art gallery business models. For us as a Canadian gallery, we're isolated here, really. It's important for us to get our artists' work out there and to present it to an international community and put it in context with it. So that's why we do the fairs. It's a huge part of our business. It's a huge risk financially. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of work, but it equates to a big part of our overall revenue at this point as well. So, but again, it's a higher financial output for the exact same kind of results, but ultimately what you're hoping is you place things in institutions. You introduce the work to new audiences, you introduce it to new curators, and then it the artist and the gallery gets more opportunities as a result of that. And so that's where I see art fairs really as being a value to me personally, and and to artists, and that's why artists do get excited for going to them, is because there are opportunities that can happen from them. But
Totally. And thank you for all of that. And like, as the audience, I think it's also important to recognize that the opportunity, the role, and for lack of a better term, like the power that you have in this equation, whether you are in a position to acquire or not, a gallery will return to a fair when they find an audience. So if you like the work, I think it's so important to engage with the gallery. Get on their mailing list, have a conversation. I think that the quality of conversation is something that I often talk about with galleries. When they are meeting an engaged audience, they will come back. And so if you like that gallery and you want to see them at your local fair, get involved.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and art fairs are great for opportunities. It's how you connect with people when you do and you have new discoveries of artists. So definitely, I agree with you. It's just building those connection, communication, talks. So this is so important for our system anyway. So.
Absolutely. And is there anything, maybe more Anne and Gareth, is there anything that you would really want to see change in art fairs?
This is a good question.
I know, right? We're willing to hear it. Just give it to us.
I would definitely say more experiences. I love the experiences, the visit that are of the art fairs.
Part of the VIP programming. Yeah, we haven't
Exactly.
touched on that, but that's...
No, those are great opportunities for the people also to meet the professionals, the curators in museum, the collection manager at
Giverny Capital.
Exactly, and those opportunities are so important in order to have real quality time with the professionals and the artists. Studio visit, for example. So those more and more, please.
Gladly. Gareth?
Yeah, I mean, VIP programs are important. I mean, it's something that I've seen work to great extent at certain fairs. There's a number of ones that I've participated, like Zona Mako, Mia mentioned earlier. They used to have an incredible, this is pre-pandemic, VIP program. Like I used to be able to have, they would fly clients to Mexico and put them up for a couple nights as part of their VIP program. And they just have an absolutely massive support system within that city. And it happens in other places too. Building that and having people that are going to come through and do collection tours, it just builds a broader audience around what's happening within the fair. The other thing that I can see on an international level that I would love to see change is a bit more transparency at times with like decision making around what galleries get into fairs and why. Because to be honest, I walk into certain fairs and I go, how did this gallery get into this fair? Or who made this choice? And there's certain fairs that do have transparency. Like Arco Madrid, for example, has like a grading system that they do. And
Selection
if you ask
committees and
who's on the selection committee, though, too, is also kind of an interesting thing. Because it's like if
Absolutely.
you know those people and they're familiar with your program, they maybe push you through quicker than taking a deeper look at some of the younger galleries. So there's having a rotation, right? Letting new people in on a regular basis instead of just, look at David Journer's and Gagosian's application and is it good? And should they be here? Or let's make them, actually put together a stronger booth. I feel like maybe you could comment on this too.
I will say that one thing that can be interesting in that moment is I have known a bit of a bait and switch where a gallery will apply with a particular, very specific program and then install a very different program.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, those are interesting conversations to have hours before a fair opens, and like, let's understand like how this happened. So yeah, it does happen.
It does. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not. I mean, what's
It's
happened
not-
with
it is-
me, it's
it-
not
it is-
intentional.
yeah.
Usually with us, it's like sometimes an artist is like doesn't, with 2 or 3
Curveballs.
Yeah.
Curveballs, and I'm responding specifically to the like, how did this gallery get in here? Like, yeah, yeah.
We're just going to ponder on that one for a minute.
But as viewers, though, too, you should ask that question when you're going
Yeah.
through. Like question the program, question the fair, question the decisions that have been made, and why things have been selected, right? And just because it's a big fair doesn't mean it's the best fair, right? And I think that there's a lot of satellite fairs that sometimes have substantially stronger, selection of galleries and artists that are there, and you can, you just kind of have to take a look and see and spend that time though. But hold the organizations up to the flame a little bit.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I think that the VIP program is another, like I just wanted to
Or the roundtable program. It's not just the VIP programming. There's also, like this fair, this conference that's open to everyone that has tickets to the fair, or, that kind of material or experience.
Sure. I guess I'm kind of coming at it from a bit of a different angle.
Sure.
Because I think that it's, sorry.
Cheers.
So dry. Thank you. I think it's, in Canada, we have such extraordinary artists. Like, particularly traveling. Oh my goodness. The quality of work that comes out of Canada, it's bananas. And I think one of the things that a VIP program can do, whether it's during the fair or outside of the dates of the fair, is really encourage that connoisseurship. Is open up the studio visits, is make the connections, open the doors, whether it's like, perhaps it's a collector's home, to encourage audiences to get involved in collecting, because I think, I, in some ways, like look at collecting as a bit of a philanthropic pursuit, because, buying the work of Canadian artists, like we are ensuring our cultural heritage, which I think is just such an essential part of culture in Canada. And I think it's an important aspect for me anyway, like, running Art Toronto and as we develop our programs, that showing these entry points to collecting is just really important for the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, I think also that having a program that would focus on how to collect and the education of collecting.
Absolutely, yes.
That is very interesting, and often some people are telling me that they don't know how to start. And I remember that for some people, the first acquisition, the very first acquisition is sometimes the hardest. So offering like some support, educational guidance, in my opinion, would be very interesting. And I know that you do it already.
We do.
Yeah, but,
But we can never do enough.
in a way that
there's
it's
always
a
more.
topic that you would need anyway to be digging forever.
Absolutely. As an exhibitor yourself, what tip would you give? What advice would you give to a young gallery that is applying to their first fair?
I mean, there's lots of things that I could tell you. I would say,
Don't do it. No.
well, take your time and make sure that you evaluate the fairs that you apply to, and ensure that it aligns with your program, right? Because once you go down a path with certain fairs, it's very hard to deviate from that. So you can go to like Miami, for example, during Miami Basel, there might be like 15 satellite fairs, and some of them are awful. Like they're really bad. I mean, they are. But I'm not going to name names, but
Gotta
but
hear
also they're
first,
maybe
folks.
just not what I'm interested in, right? But if you are like, I just want to get to Miami, I just want to exhibit there, but then you start exhibiting at some of these fairs that have a specific sort of reputation within the art world, it's very hard to move your alignment from that, right? Once you exhibit next to specific styles of work or in certain contexts, it's just like an artist, right? As an artist, you exhibit at a certain gallery space that is maybe offline with your kind of like program or what you're wanting to be associated with. So it's like, take your time, look at the fairs, make sure it makes sense for you, and of course, look at the sort of like the finances of it. I would recommend as a young gallery you apply to like every fair has a different name for it. There's like Verge or Presentation or the Curator section. There's smaller, subsidized sections of the fair.
Les espaces pavillons.
Exactly. So that every fair has something like this, and it allows younger galleries to sort of get in, test the market, introduce an artist or two to that area, and from there they can decide whether or not they're ready to move into like a full booth. Even for my space, it's like we've been in business for 4 years, but I've been in the industry for a long time, and you still have to like, when you think about things like Armory, for example, you can only do like the emerging gallery booth for so many years, and then you age out, and then you go from a booth that costs you like, $15,000 to $50,000 US, and if you don't have the artwork to support that at certain price points, it's a problem, right? You can't do it anymore. So you have to kind of like pace it out and figure out how do you kind of like also get to that next step.
And you, Mia?
Yeah, I would, just building on what Gareth is saying, I would also encourage you to call the fair. I have conversations with galleries all the time, and galleries will send me like a draft, right? Like this is what we're looking to apply with, and I'm very transparent in my feedback. I'll let them know if something that I think will work or won't work, and that's part of the relationship building as well. And I think what you said about particularly a city like Miami where there's so much energy around that time of year, around those fairs. The shipping costs, the accommodations, like that's all going to be the same investment. And so you want to make sure that you choose the right outlet.
Because it's not just about sales as a gallery. It's like I could go to a fair, I could sell, but I might not actually be doing the best work for the artist. Because what actually you really want for long-term growth, for building a value, is those stickers we've been talking about, right? You want to place the artist in institutions.
They're a hot commodity.
Yeah. You need the validation of collections. You need the validation of important collectors and of institutions supporting your program and supporting the artists that you represent, so that you can build the value of it and you can, increase the price point. And then the collectors love to see that, right? Like nobody wants to buy a piece for $5,000 and then come back to a fair 5 years later and see that same artist selling for $5,000. They want to see that there's been some growth in the career, and you need to have that validation, not just sales.
Yeah, maybe I would add that if you look at the practice or the CVs of your artists, and that you see that one of them exhibited in a specific city or in a specific institution, maybe it's an opportunity to contact the professional, the curators of this institution, and build something special around that opportunity. See, I don't know, if your artist is from Haiti and there is a fair focus on diversity, that could be a way to make a difference. So just think about your program as your vision and your voice. And I would say that just focus on that and see how you can create connection with professional and institution.
And if you were to accompany a group of new potential collectors, what would the pep talk that you give them right before you come into the fair, what would that look like?
I would say take your time. Take your time, visit the art fair many times, maybe 2 or 3 days in a row, just to make sure that you are sure about your choices. Do your homework, read about the artist.
Read the artist's CVs.
The CVs, but also just try to understand. It takes time to really get the sense of a practice. And in my opinion, yes, you can buy a work like this, but will you really get the sense of this work? So take your time and reconnect with the galleries 2 weeks after the art fairs. That's fine.
And don't be shy to go up to the gallerists or go up to the art dealers and ask as many questions as you want.
And
2 weeks after the fair.
yeah, exactly. On last Friday, yesterday actually. So I gave this collection tour, and a student was part of the group, and she asked me so many questions. And thank you. I thank her for that, because yes, we also need those kind of conversations.
I was hoping I could open it up to you guys. If anyone has any questions, Emiko will be going around with the microphone. So we have a question over there.
I was wondering if you had any recommendations for any grants or anything for galleries that are newer, hoping to get into the art fair scene that might help with a bit of the financial side as well.
There's definitely some grants, not a lot. There's 2 avenues you can go down as a gallery. There's one specifically that can help for travel within Canada for fairs. So we typically will put forth a grant for this fair and for Art Toronto, and then there's another, I can't remember the name of it. Afterwards, if you want, I could tell you, but there's one for the U.S. as well, or for abroad, which is supported by the Canada Council, and you can, as a gallery, receive up to $30,000 in a calendar year towards promotion of artists outside of the country. So as a gallery, you can receive that. The other thing you can also do is you can encourage your artists, or you can help them to write grants to support production for work that they may be bringing. Right? It makes it easier. So we've done that before too. We have a grant writer that we work with, and we'll connect them with the artists, and sometimes they'll create, production grants for them, and they'll get support through that, which ultimately helps as well. But as a gallery, there's really only a couple that will help to participate in a fair.
And if you're based out of this province, there's La SODEC that also offers a program of grants for galleries.
This isn't necessarily a grant, but I do think a resource that's underutilized in culture in Canada is the BDC, the Business Development Bank. They will offer support in business planning. They will offer very low interest loans. Sometimes they have programs where you can get a loan with no interest. I think the resources are amazing, and I'm always surprised.
And in that same vein or trail of thoughts, there's again in Quebec, there's La Caisse des Jardins de la Culture that offers similar programs. Any other questions?
Yes, I would love to take a moment to talk about the fact that there are some fairs that put in a total transparency the stats about how many women artists were in the fair, how many BIPOC artists were in the fair also. And I think as the collector or curator, that could be an initiative, another one to go in certain fairs. I'm thinking of Untitled in Miami, where there's many different kind of fairs at the same moment. But for example, in Untitled, they were like this in the press release. They put the info, and I was thinking, do you think that's something that will take more and more space in fairs, to give this info to the public? I'm not sure why English is good.
Yeah, I just think, like, I'm thinking about logistically how that works in terms of like surveying exhibitors and so on. I know that, I mean, off the top of my head, that Indigenous representation is really important at Art Toronto. Like, we have gotten, like, pre-pandemic, it was something like, 2% of artists, and now it's like over 30%. Wow. So, there are, I think it's a really good comment, and it's something that I'm going to take away and think about. Is that something that you guys promote?
So at the end of the fair, the exhibitors receive a survey where we ask questions about sales amount and institution purchases. And I think that in the future, it has come up in conversation where, because we're as far as the fair goes, we're not really responsible as to what is happening inside the booth. So we have no way before the fair to know this information, but I think that it's definitely something that we could add to this end of fair survey. But we are also depending on the artists to fill out these questions. So depending on the gallerists to fill out these questions. So, but yeah, that's actually a great point. It'd be pretty interesting to know.
Yeah, I wanted to add also, I don't know if you know the website Artsy, but every year they are producing a worldwide survey about the art market. And it's a very good tool also for us to get a sense of the situation.
Yeah, just building on that, there are a few important. There's the Basel UBS report. That one comes out in the summer. And then the Burns-Halpern report, which is produced out of London, which looks specifically at female artists and female identifying artists and their presence in the market, and then also in museum collections.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. I have one very light one. What do you think is the future for the red dots? I mean, because
how do we feel about red dots,
that
guys?
Don't want to
Are
put
you talking about the art fair?
Yeah, no. I mean,
I know what you mean.
Okay.
I mean, every art dealer has a different stance on it. You go through the booths here, you'll see that some people have different information on the label. Some will put prices, some won't.
Some have lists with the red dots. Some have,
Yeah, and to be totally honest, red dots will only pop up if the gallery is doing well. They're not going to put one red dot up and be like, hey, look at this one piece we sold. If they've sold like 8 or 9 pieces, they're going to put some dots up as a way to sort of like grab your attention and it's all a marketing kind of
we're so sneaky
thing. Yeah, I mean, that's the reality of it. The red dots are there to sort of just like reinforce to people that, this artist is doing well, or hey, it's the same thing as the stickers on the wall, right? It's to grab people's attention. So we don't we don't try to bring your attention to something that isn't successful. Bring your attention to something that is successful.
And I would say like there are different ways to kind of address that, right? So like some exhibitors, their art fair strategy is they're going to hang the booth once, and that's that, right? So, and then another gallery will completely rehang. Maybe they'll rehang every day. Maybe they'll only rehang when things are sold. I think that, like from my perspective, like I think what you're asking about is like that, like looking at that kind of dynamism, and I agree. It's like it's fully a marketing piece. Oh, is that cold to say?
No, I mean, this is art fairs are marketing tools at the end of the day. I mean, they're how our galleries market, and I also sometimes we don't put stickers up because, or even when we send out our previews, we won't list something as sold, because if we list it as sold, if somebody has interest in it, they maybe won't express that interest because like, oh, it's gone. But if they express interest, and we might be like, well, actually, there is another 4 works by this artist in production in their studio. I'd love to show it to you, right? So, it's kind of a balance of that. So at art fairs, I find that if you put a sticker up, it can actually be a deterrent for somebody who's walking in to talk to you and engage with you about that artist's work, because they might be like, oh, well, it's sold. I'm going to move on to something else, because they're not giving thought to maybe there's additional available works by this artist
Or additional editions.
Exactly.
Well, thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
I really wanted to thank you guys for taking the time. Thank you, Gareth. We've kept you away from your booth, I think, long enough.
We've got some good people down there. It's okay.